Together, let's embark on a scientific exploration of yoga, where you are the scientist, your heart is the laboratory, and you are the outcome. Welcome to Meditate with Daaji. All of us want to be happy. All our lives we chase happiness. But we often find it eluding us. Today, Daaji will help us explore this idea of happiness. And after that, like always, we will meditate with Daaji.
Hello everyone. In today's session, I would like to cover perhaps the most interesting topic. We all seek happiness, emotional support, and a loving relationship. So we'll talk today at length, not so much in details, but some principles which governs the laws of happiness, how to increase emotional intelligence and better our relationships. Let me start this session with a quote from German philosopher Schopenhauer. He asked, "How can we determine whether a man is happy or unhappy?" He defined true happiness as the complete satisfaction of all desires. Is it possible? You could say that the happiness of a person can be described mathematically. One of those lighter moments, this equation came as an inspiration. Like if all the desires are fulfilled, let's say you had 10 desires, and out of these 10 desires, all 10 desires are fulfilled. That means 10 divided by 10 times 100 will be 100% happiness, isn't it? Let's say if out of 10 only 5 are fulfilled, then it would be 50%. But think of an individual who says he has no desires. The total number would be 0. So what would happen to this equation? Happiness is equal to desires fulfilled divided by total number of desires. Where total number of desires tend to be 0, anything you divide by 0 remains indeterminate factor. Earlier days we used to call it as infinite. In a desireless state, we don't expect anything. When we don't expect anything, we don't manipulate others. Why would I have to even manipulate or think about having a better relationship, for example, for the sake of my happiness or for the sake of fulfilling my desires? In that case, my happiness is dependent on outside. I will fail in my life if I constantly all through depend on others. Human evolution is all about self-dependency. Though we interact in this society with a lot of love, we support each other at emotional level. Higher the emotional intelligence, the person is considered to be more empathetic in nature. He is more considerate, he is more compassionate. And who can be more compassionate? Can a heart which is discontent can be compassionate? When you expect nothing, you accept everything. Is it possible? In certain state, no matter what happens around us, when we realize that something is beyond me, I'm pushed into a certain situation where I have no other choice but to accept that scenario. That's a good situation, though it can bring about a lot of turbulence and turmoils in life. But accepting whatever be the situation helps us. Suppose you don't accept certain thing that has happened in family and you go on fighting. What do you learn out of this? But moment we learn things wisely, we accept because your heart says, because your heart feels that love. Love makes us forget all kinds of defects in others. And it is out of this love that acceptance emerges out of compassion. How one destroys inner emotional state. Our experiences show that when you're angry, that's the moment when we lose this inner emotional balance. That happiness seems to simply disappear in fit of anger. And when does anger appear in the heart? When certain things are happening against your will or against your desire. So, such disappointment leads to anger. Anger makes us lose our balance. And once we lose our mental equilibrium, somehow we lose our humanity because humanity, that human nature, human character, it is all about humanness, which arises from the heart. When heart is in a state of anger because a small desire was not fulfilled, then it speaks a lot about our nature. We need to change that inner nature so that we remain in a position to accept things. If one wants to have infinite happiness, infinite bliss, then we ought to minimize numbers of desires, from more and more of it to less and less, and finally, if possible, to zero. Make peace with yourself. When we go on expecting things in our relationship from the other, what happens? When that expectation is not fulfilled, we think less of the other person. Over a period of time, this relationship somehow it's strained simply out of this expectation. How do we apply a scientific principle in this relationship? Let's consider the aspect of entropy in physics. In physics, entropy is the degree of disorder or randomness in the system. The second law of thermodynamics says that entropy increases with time. It reflects the instability of a system over a period of time if there is nothing to stabilize it. When you enter a room of your son or a daughter who is just 5, 6 years old, 10 years old, you bring one toy, you bring second toy, you bring third toy. Books are lying everywhere. What happens if there is no help from our side as parents to fix this? Keep the toys in right places, keep the clothes in right places, put books in proper places. Some effort is required to make the place neater and clean. Somebody has to do it. External input is required to fix things in order. In human relationships, entropy also develops if there is nothing to bring order to it. We have interactions day after day and we let things build up inside us. We keep harboring things and one day we explode unless we do something about it. We need input to stabilize any relationship, to iron out the wrinkles or differences so that we don't harbor and store things forever. But do we really need constant input to bring stability and maintain a relationship? That would be a high maintenance relationship that you have to fuel so much. You have to make adjustment all the time. When constant input is required every time there is a fight or tension with a friend or family member, you will require greater input each time. Imagine you come late at home and you have to justify to your spouse, honey, I'm sorry, I had stuck somewhere because whatever. Second time it happens, third time it happens. And we have to go on saying whatever be the reasons. But in true relationships, you just mention what has happened, and that is enough. There is no defense, but only description of what has happened. In a family, if you have to tolerate each other, then constant input is required. In situations where you have to give constant emotional input, it is a broken family, even though you may be together. In true relationship, it is not the tolerance that rules the life, but acceptance of each other, which is arising out of love, mutual love. In such a state of love, where things are taken for granted, you don't need explanations. You don't have to speak lies. You don't need to manipulate any reasons. So it is the love that you have in your heart, that is the input that stabilizes relationships. Love brings a greater level of acceptance. From where does this love come? From a pure heart, from a truthful, genuine heart. In families where we are taught to love, to sacrifice, to accept, to remain pure, we are able to let go of everything. We can remove the incompatibility by understanding this principle of entropy. When heart is at rest, heart is content, heart is in love, it doesn't question anything, doesn't demand anything. Suppose you don't accept certain situation, then what happens? There is a problem, there is a situation, and you say, no, I will not accept this situation. Fine. There is another way of looking at it, and you say, okay, let me see. Suppose I accept this situation. Then you will study the situation, why you are accepting it. Secondly, you will learn something out of the situation. But if you snap out and say, I will not accept this, then you will not be able to study the situation. And secondly, you will not learn anything out of this. You will not become wiser. And on top of that, you'll strain the relationship. So, to arrive at such a state of the heart which accepts, which loves, which remains content in a state of compassion, this is possible only when I go deep within my heart, touch the real conscience, feel that real conscience all the time. Allow that conscience to rule our life. When one transcends all these differences within oneself as well as within friends and family circles, then there's beauty to such a life. Key is to go deeper within your consciousness and touch the pure conscience. With the help of transmission, yogic transmission we call pranahuti, meditation becomes deeper and deeper each time we practice it. So, what have we learned out of this? The key to happiness is to remain in tune with our inner purity, with our inner compassionate state, inner chambers of the pure heart. And when we remain pure and innocent like little children, then magical thing happens. One craves to go to heaven. The religions talk about our ascension into heaven. But such a heart, such a simple and pure heart, loving heart, when it is made so, the heavens descend. We don't have to go to heaven. Heaven itself descends into our heart. There is joy all the time. I wish you all a wonderful life ahead, joyful, peaceful, and most accomplished life in all spheres. Thank you for listening.
Now, let's all meditate with Daaji.
You all know how to meditate, and perhaps some of you do not really know how to meditate and joining us for the first time. This is how we meditate. Artfulness way of meditation, it's very simple. Feel relaxed. Remove all the distractions if you might have. Something like phones. And focus on the presence of divine light in our heart. Think that this divine light is attracting your attention inward. And retain this thought as long as you can. By chance you happen to move away from this noble idea, when you're overwhelmed by so many thoughts, just remind yourself that right now I am meditating on the presence of divine light. Let's all begin meditation. That's all. Please make a note of how you felt. Let's write our observations.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Meditate with Daaji. See you again next week.